talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hill and special guests.
Hey everybody, it's Randy Hills, and this is the November 28th edition of Good Old Talk in Memphis Wrestling. Excited, fired up, happy as I can be as I turn around and look at the great job my producer Adam Dunn did decorating for Christmas. Man, what a show we have for you today. I think you will love it. I think you will enjoy it. I think we talk about stuff that we've never talked about. We'll talk about ribs in wrestling, jokes in wrestling. It'll be a great segment here today. And also, we are going to deal with somebody we hadn't talked about a lot on this program. Not very many times at all, but somebody that both Jim Cornette and Dutch Mantell really knocked. Now, Michael St. John will be here today, and Michael St. John had a hands-on working relationship for many years with George Goulas, and we will talk George Goulas with Michael St. John today. What else on the program today? I'll tell you what else is on the program today. We will also take a look at young Bobby Eaton, one of the early promos, interviews from beautiful Bobby Eaton. Also, Bobby Eaton in 2001 appeared for Power Pro Wrestling, and we have three great clips with that. We'll talk a little bit modern wrestling. A lot of good stuff going on today. Now, the first thing I want to do, and I appreciate Adam Dunn being on here as the producer of this program today. I'm going to start with some wrestling news, and Adam's going to back me up here with pictures. And we want to talk about somebody in the Attitude Era was big time. No doubt about it. One of the most popular people ever in the women's division of the WWF at the time. As we see the picture from then and from now, a 50-year-old, the former Sunny, Tammy Sitch. And I want to read this article from Daytona Beach, Florida. Former pro wrestler Tammy Sunny Sitch has been sentenced to more than 17 years in prison for drunkenly colliding with another car, killing a 70-year-old man while her blood alcohol level was 4 times the legal limits, authorities in Florida said. Tammy, who was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2011, pleaded no contest in August to driving under the influence, manslaughter, and other charges. She has also had an unsealed bottle of vodka in her vehicle and had cannabis in her system at the time of her arrest. She had faced up to no more than 25 years in prison during her sentencing hearing on Monday. During the hearing, Sis said she felt remorse and regret deep in my soul. Previously, she had been arrested multiple times from driving under the influence in Pennsylvania, where her driver's license had been suspended. She didn't have a Florida driver's license. That's just a sad story from Sunny Tammy Sitch. Want to refer to people that is on the show right now. I understand from social media, Greg Campbell not feeling very good at all today. But My buddy Ronnie Crowder is in the house, and Ronnie is saying hi to all of us. And Al Tuttle from the Peach State of Georgia said hello to me. Adam and everybody else says LL says, hey, hey, hey. Randy and everybody else on board. PJ is saying hello to us. Appreciate everybody saying hello. Appreciate everybody on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Appreciate everybody joining us today. Now, this is a big week of birthdays for Memphis Wrestling. Big week of birthdays as Frank Satan's in the house. And Frank would have certainly like to know, if he didn't know already, that's coming up this coming Wednesday, we have double birthdays, and those birthdays are the number one citizen of Old Trough, Texas, as we show that picture, Dutch Mantell, and born on the same day, on the same year in 1949 is Jerry the King Lawler. Lawler and Dirty Dutch Mantell. Absolutely, two of the greats, and they share a birthday. Actually, they're 73 years old right now. They turned 74 years old on Wednesday. So happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, King and Dutchman. Happy birthday to yay! Happy birthday to the King and the Dutchman. Also on Thursday. Can you believe it? This guy turns 50 on Thursday. He is from the hood. Kelly Warren Wolf. Wolfie D turns 50 years old. So happy birthday to the King, the Dutchman, and also, of course, to Wolfie D. And let's look and see as I will put my glasses on to see what I was saying. What do I think about Bobby Petrina being back at Arkansas as the offensive coordinator? I think he'll end up eventually the next head coach. I know a lot of drama going on with him when he left Arkansas, and it was a big scandal. However, certainly they need to make a change, and they needed to make a change, something that would help, and he is a great offensive-minded coach. We'll talk about our picks for football later in the show today for this coming weekend. As Andrew Alvin Jr. is saying, hey. LL says, bring out the crown and that stash, and that is what we're doing. PJ says it's already November 29th in Thailand, so she can go ahead and say happy birthday to Dutch Mantell and Jerry Lawler. It's always fun to do that. Now, before I bring in Michael St. John, I do want to make this quick announcement. I had a Zoom call, a media conference, a video conference with my doctor, Corey Montgomery, at University of Arkansas Medical School, at Medical School Hospital. He's one of the experts in the field, and had a conversation with him today, and I just wanted to keep everybody updated. Now, I will definitely, before the end of the year, have to have surgery to take off this lump in the back here and the shoulder that's at times irritating. Certainly, I'm excited that we can get it done before the end of the year. Also, they said that the situation now, it's precancerous. That means it's not actively cancerous at all right now. That's wonderful news. However, we need to take it off before there is situation that it could be even life-threatening. I think we got to it quick. And so thank God for that. Thank God for my nieces that noticed a mole on my body, and it led to this situation. And my nieces, all three of them, was on that conference call with me for sure. So just wanted to let everybody up to date for that. Hey, Rashad Jones, I hadn't seen you in a long time. That was a false introduction. I forgot a main point of this show, and I want to bring in the man that was, I'm sure, interested this past Saturday as Alabama, sweet home Alabama. I'm sure he was interested in the game as they played Auburn, and it was a nail biter for sure. Absolutely nail biter. So this coming week, it looks like number 1 rated Georgia, the Bulldogs, and the 8th ranked Alabama Tide will go at it for Saturday football. A lot going on in the state of Alabama, including appearance by the legendary Michael St. John. Man, Michael, sorry I rambled on, but I forgot to tell people what's going on with my health. And then I wanted to tell you congratulations for that win with Alabama the other day. Man, it was a nerve-wracking, exciting end, and we'll see. We'll do our picks, so don't tell us your picks, because at the end of the show, I like a sports talk show. I got my notes, and we will have some games, and I want our audience to help us with that. So, okay, here we go with this, and go with the first take from Michael St. John on this Tuesday Talking Memphis Wrestling.
Well, first of all, before and more important than anything else, thank God that you got a good report. I think things are going to work out very well for you. I don't think that's nothing that beyond getting this thing taken care of. And God love you, and our prayers are with you. And I know I speak for everybody in the audience when I say that. That is the number one most important thing. The second thing, was there a ball game over the weekend? Oh, that's right. There was. I think the entire state has been on fire since Saturday at about 6:45, 5:45 Central. It's one of those things. I have named it. Everybody's naming it something. Milrose Miracle. The Gravedigger, which was the name of the play they ran, and all that stuff. But I call it, and on the morning show, I named it Monday. Auburn had the kick 6 10 years ago, and they celebrated that. It was 1 second left, and Alabama tries a field goal, and they miss it. It's short. Auburn has a receiver deep in the end zone. He goes 109 yards for a touchdown, and Auburn beats Alabama down on the Plains. So 10 years later, this happens, and it's in Alabama's favor. So I've named it the Pitch 6 because he threw the ball. The Pitch 6. So anyway, and just FYI, I know we're not doing picks right yet, but I do think that Georgia will beat Alabama this coming Saturday, and that is a very unpopular opinion. I've been taking a lot of heat on that on the air. But anyway, we'll talk more about that.
We'll talk more about it. I'm just going to tell you that I listened to the Front Row with Bud Rowe this morning, and most of the people calling in, including the hosts, Bud Chappelle and Randy Myers, picking Florida, even though picking Alabama for that game coming up this weekend. So you got people in Arkansas pulling for the Tide, and that don't happen much, Adam Michael.
That's for sure. And one thing about it, and I know it's a popular pick, but I think I've watched a lot of, I have 7 TVs going on any given Saturday, and I watch a lot of football, and I think Georgia is one of those once in a destination teams, and they're just good. And I think Alabama's a little bit beat up. They were in a more physical game than Georgia was Saturday, so it's going to be interesting. Although Alabama plays well at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And by the way, Bobby Petrino back to Arkansas. I'd love to see it. And quite frankly, I didn't like the fact that he got dismissed for why he got dismissed. Heck, it was his motorcycle and his girlfriend. But, I would love to see Bobby Petrino back at Arkansas.
I know this is a Talking Memphis Wrestling, but I want the show bigger than that. I want to talk about sports. We've had breaking news, and unfortunately, we've had to break sad news on this program. We've had to talk about police shootings and all kinds of stuff on this show. I think our audience has the feelings we have, Michael, and they're thinking the same thoughts. And it's my thought process that it's almost our responsibility with news events to talk when it's breaking. Also, I think people are sports fans. They love pro wrestling. They love Memphis wrestling. But Michael, this is more. I That's one of the questions I had for you later. If you had to go to your civic groups, one of your civic groups there in Arab, Alabama, and you say, well, yeah, I got to go home and got to do Talking Memphis Wrestling tonight. If they said, well, Michael, what is Talking Memphis Wrestling? What's it about? What do you guys do? How would you describe this show?
It's a talk show about wrestling primarily, and we concentrate on the days of the territory of Memphis and the highlights and the lowlights of that. But I do think it's a more all-encompassing show, and with you and with Pat and with Coach, it just rounds things out. And I got to ask about it. It's funny you should bring that up because I serve on the alcohol board here in this community. Alcohol. This became a wet community, and alcohol by the ability to buy beverages and to serve in a restaurant about 12 years ago. And I have been on the board all 12 years. I'm the only one that's been on the board all 12 years. And I think it's the fact that I don't belong to any of the local churches. I'm a member of Sacred Heart Church over in Coleman, and and the second thing is I think I'm more outspoken than most people. Most people are more reserved in this day and time of social media, and I understand that. But sometimes I can be outspoken. So the mayor, he was the former mayor. Then we've had a new mayor since, and I keep getting appointed for 4 more years. I feel like Teddy, or I feel like Franklin Delano Roosevelt. I got 4 more years coming up on the alcohol board. But all that to be said, that I had a gentleman. He works for Buffalo Rock, which is the Pepsi Cola distributor, and he was asking me about something that had happened and about wrestling, and it led around to the Hulk Hogan video. And being the voice, and the fact that I got paid $25 for it. It's been seen 10 million plus times and all that good stuff. And I said something about being on a wrestling podcast, and he lit up. Yeah, a wrestling podcast. And the biggest, and I think people, more people will be attracted to this show. I think the biggest problem with this show is just the platform and the availability of where people can find it. So I tell them to go and follow you on Twitter. And then that's the best and the easiest, maybe not the best, but the easiest way to follow us on Tuesday nights, because you post the feed on Twitter. But, it's sort of tough for people to find it. It's not easy. Let's put it that way.
And want everybody to know, if you could help us be our sales force, and you could help us by promoting this show, and there's several ways to do it on Facebook at the page, my main page, the Randy Hills page. You see the address there, RandyHills.79. That's Facebook at RandyHills.79. Also on the Power Pro Wrestling Facebook page. Also on the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame. On Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, it's at RB Hills. And folks, I'm really wanting to build my YouTube channel. We don't have, when we have people watching today from YouTube, we don't have a biggest number of subscribers as I do on X, Twitter, on Facebook, and would love for you, certainly. Make sure you subscribe to it. Go to youtube.com /at Randy Hills, and certainly help me with that. Give me more subscribers for that. Now, I want to talk about a subject, and you said a little bit ago that you speak your piece and you're outspoken in that sort of way. Then I'm going to really let you to do that today. Now, I want to back up this up at first by giving a heads up to Adam that there's some pictures that I want to show, because we're going to talk and we're going to show a couple of videos. Somebody that I think is unfairly criticized, unfairly knocked by several people. We'll get into that because we have a interesting video coming up soon, but we will be talking about George Gulas. George Gulas was born on May the 9th, 1949. He's a few months, as you see him there, with his dad, promoter Nick Gulas. George Gulas is currently 74 years old, a few months older than Jerry Lawler and Dutch Mantell. I also think we have another picture or two. And here is, and I'm going to have some video of Bobby Eaton a little later on, and we're going to talk about the career of Bobby Eaton, as we have a Alabama co-host here and a star of this show, and Michael St. John. Certainly, Bobby Eaton is the pride of Huntsville, Alabama. Beautiful Bobby team with George Gulas for the Jet Set. Now, I want you to just give us a little background information. I want you to wait to do your rant till I show the video, because then you can really come back. But Jim Cornette and Dutch Mantell, I'll go ahead and say this now, says that George Gulas is the worst wrestler ever. I'm not saying he's Jerry Lawler. I'm not saying he's Jack Briscoe. But I'm saying that I've watched 4 or 5 George Gulas matches today, and he's nowhere close to being the worst wrestler that I've ever seen. Nowhere close. I think he's misunderstood. A lot of promoters' sons are, but here's your chance. 74-year-old George Gulas, and my goal for this segment is to educate the people, because every time George Gulas' name comes up, you hear the expression. And the fans do it as well, and some of Team Hell's do it as well. It's probably on here now. By the way, I want to say hello to Greg Wayne. He is in the house today. Frank Seaton certainly mentioning the Jet Set, but certainly Daddy says sell. I think he's misunderstood. So here's Michael St. John to make us all understand, if you agree with what I'm saying.
Well, I don't disagree with what you're saying, Randy, because I think George is misunderstood. I think a lot of the negativity from Dutch, I always liked Dutch, and I think he has a wonderful wrestling knowledge. He was a great worker in the ring. He's a good matchmaker. He came up with good finishes. I never had a problem with Dutch on this side. I think Dutch had a problem with me, but I think Dutch has had a problem with a lot of people, because I think Dutch Mantell is a negative Nelly. And I think, you can look at a glass of Coca-Cola and you can say, okay, that glass is half full, or you can say that glass is half empty. I think that glass is half full, maybe a little bit more than half full, and it's only Coke, folks. But I think Dutch would see that being as half empty. And I just think that's his personality. I think it's, he's sort of gotten older and cantankerous and bitter. And I've listened to his podcast, and I can't say that I like it and listen to it every week, because I don't. I do listen to Jimmy Cornette just about every week, because I drive to our Tennessee station, and it's about a 3-hour podcast, and it's about a 3-hour drive. And I don't see Jimmy as a negative person. I think he's negative about professional wrestling in the 21st century, in the second or third decade of the 21st century. But and he has his reasons for being, and I understand it, and I agree with a lot of that. But I think Dutch's bitterness, and I think it stems. I don't know if there was an altercation when Dutch left the territory from Nick. I know that George was he was refereeing, just starting to get into the wrestling business as a wrestler. When Dutch and Randy Savage had those incredible matches in the late 60s and actually it was the early 70s, for weeks, a one-on-one feud in a tag team territory, and they blew the house down every time they got in the ring. And I will always give Dutch credit his propers for that, because he was a great worker and a great guy. And I don't like Dutch, but I think over the years, Dutch has gotten to be bitter. And I think part of the thing is, everybody talks about the how horrible Nick treated people as far as pay goes, and payoffs, and cheating the boys out of money or cheating the girls out of money and all this. And I've never witnessed it head on, because on that other side of that fence, Nick was very good to me from day one till the day that I had to attend his funeral. He never, ever, we never got cross. We agreed on, this is what I'm going to pay you, and this is what you're going to get, and this is what I expect. And that was the contract. And I tried to live up to it each and every week, whether it was at the Fairgrounds Arena, whether it was in Chattanooga or Bowling Green or Huntsville or Birmingham or wherever he wanted me to be. And George, I think a lot of the wrestlers resented George because he was babied. And that's the best way I can say it. He was held with kid gloves by his dad. George was a mama's boy. His mother was just absolutely, George could do no wrong in her eyes, bless her heart and bless her soul. But, and Nick would get on to George sometimes, but George was an only son of a man that had a lot of power in wrestling, especially in this part of the country and back in those days. And I think because of that, and because the way he was handled by Nick, I think caused a lot of consternation, a lot of heat with the boys. And George would drive around, and he had a big car like Daddy. He had a big Lincoln like Daddy, and George would come to the matches, and he would walk in, and he never really integrated in the locker room as one-on-one. You know how it was in the locker room, Randy. You'd sit around and BS and talk about what's happened or what's happening in the world, or what'd you do this week, what'd you have for Thanksgiving, whatever. There was a camaraderie. Whether you were in the babyface locker room or the heel locker room, didn't mean anything. I mean, everybody was, everybody got along, and I don't know. It hurts me to hear Dutch, and I listened to the what you sent me, and it hurts me to hear Dutch say those things, not because that he's shooting in his way, but I don't think Dutch saw George from the light of the whole picture. And he only saw George in Nick's office or at the arena or when they were riding down the road. And I don't even know if they rode together. I'm sure they did at some point. And it wasn't totally who George was. And George has done well for himself after his dad's passing, and he sort of hit emotional rock bottom and bounced back. And I know he's a well accredited and well respected basketball and baseball official in the TSSAA. I haven't talked to George in a while. I did reach out though, Randy. I will tell you, I did reach out. I tried to call him. I have a cell phone number from a few years back, and I tried to call him, and I got a voicemail, or I actually got the person is not available at this time. I left a message. I haven't heard. So that may not even be his number, but I was going to invite him to come on the show, because I think there's a side of George that, people hear about, the Daddy Says Sell, and he hears about all the crap side, but there was a good side to George too. And he was an emotional person like his mom. Nick would get mad emotion, but I only saw Nick Goulas cry one time, and that's when his wife died. But I don't know. I feel I'm taking up for somebody that I actually like and was a friend, even though we have not been in constant contact, or in any kind of one-on-one contact in about 8-9 years now. But it's not to say if George called me back tomorrow and said, "Hey, I'm returning your call," we wouldn't have a 45-minute conversation. So I feel I feel like Dutch has sort of a chip on his shoulder about all this, and I'm not so sure that it doesn't come from the relationship with Nick. Now, the other thing is, and I don't know quite well where this comes from, but Dutch, I understand, and it has gotten back to me that he has used my name in vain years ago and perhaps more recently on his podcast. I don't know. And honestly, it doesn't bother me because, I know where I'm at in my world, in my life, and what I do, and anything Dutch Mantell thinks, does, or says is not going to affect me. And so he can say what he wants. I'm an open target as far as that goes. But I've never had a crossword with Dutch and don't intend to. But at the same time, it's easy to take shots at people who don't shoot back or don't have bullets in the gun to shoot back. It's easy to shoot at those people. So that sort of disturbs me because I never thought that Dutch would fall to this low in his professional career. And he's a very verbose and a very well-spoken and well-educated person, and I respect that. I never thought it would get to this. And so much of this, I really think, is Dutch trying to make a name for himself, a la what our good friend Conrad Thompson has helped revive a lot of wrestlers' careers and post-careers in the world of podcasting.
And Jim Cornette, of course, hit big with his podcast before anybody did. And certainly we'll talk about that as we will hear George Goulas talk. But I want to do something real quick. We've mentioned it before. One of our regular listeners, Ronnie Crowder, and Adam had it up on the screen a few minutes ago, or I saw it popped up. I don't exactly know if it was on the screen, but Ronnie Crowder lives 80 miles from your Tennessee station. And there it is right there. I've said this on here before. Ronnie Crowder says,
Ronnie,
I listen to your Tennessee station all the time. It's only about 80 miles from my house. It comes in real good here. So Ronnie's a big fan of your fun stations.
Thank you, Ronnie. I appreciate that. We have a neat little area up in that area of Tennessee. I love that area of Tennessee. I'll tell you right off. I mean, that's that and that part of southern Kentucky just across that border is probably my favorite part of the country. And I've lived in all the places or all the areas of the country except the Pacific Northwest, but I love Middle Tennessee and southern Kentucky.
All right. Certainly we'll get into the George Goulas things in the video in just a little bit. We just got so much going on and a big show. I'm glad it's me and Michael today. Pat is keeping scorekeeper at a basketball game. Chris didn't know if he was going to get on or not, but this is good as we're going to go back and I have a huge surprise to you. It's not Michael St. John related as far as doing the announcing, but it is somebody doing the announcing. You'll pop big and you will love it. That's coming up. Also coming up after the George Goulas situation, after we finish with that, I want to talk to you a little bit about modern wrestling, and I want to talk to you about the recent CM Punk returning for the first time in almost 10 years to the WWE. We don't want to get to that right now, or certainly would be good to show the picture of CM Punk, and we will talk more about that and get some feedback from our audience, what they thought about it, and compare it to his return after 8 years to wrestling when he got to AEW. But right now, I want to take you to a legendary George Goulas video. Let me explain this. It starts with Dutch knocking George, saying he's the worst wrestler ever. Then it goes to George defending himself against both Dutch and Cornette. Now, you know how Cornette fires shots all the time. I'm not going to say I agree because I don't know anything about Cornette's personal life, and I think there's been things in George's life that's made headlines as well, and we're not going to play that game at all. This isn't that type of podcast, but I thought it was important to share that and to watch the entire thing to see what Team Hales thinks about that video. Michael, that's on the right side of my screen in the clip, so our microphone will not be hot. It will be muted as we watch this segment. Everybody watch real clear. If you've never heard from George Gulas, you'll hear that. Of course, the first voices you're going to hear is James from Down and Dirty with Dutch, or Storytime with Dutch, whatever it's called, and Dutch Mantell as we play now.
And his name is George Gulas. The world's, not possibly, but definitely the world's worst professional wrestler.
Back talk, chirp. Well, thanks for the compliment. One of the worst wrestlers, whatever. Well, you see that today. He's one of the worst basketball players, yet he's playing. Vern Gagne's son, Greg Gagne, was the second worst wrestler ever wrestled. Why? Because his dad, Vern, pushed him. So I'm not the only one. It's the thing about the father-son relationship, and that's in any sport. It's depressing. Jim Cornette was a mouth about that. You don't know the whole story, and why are you running somebody down? You've run so many people down in the past. See, I heard that his wife and him would invite another female over, and they'd have threesomes. I didn't know that till about 2 or 3 months ago. Julie said, I know that. I heard that. I've heard even wrestlers say that. He'd invite a wrestler over, and his wife would share sex with him. And, but that's their business.
I really thought about it, and I thought it's out there, it's on podcasts, it's all over the place, and anything Dutch had said, Cornette said, or George said, we're doing this as a service to our audience to try to tell this story. Any comments on that mess, Michael?
I never got invited. I'm sorry. So that's my comment. I think George, George is well-spoken in this day and time. And, that was one of the knocks on him when he was a wrestler, is that he sort of had a speech, not a lisp, but a bit of an impediment. And he didn't sound sincere or real when he was doing an interview. And I think that was part of the knock on him. And he's, he's matured and developed into a gentleman that, and I think George has a lot, and I would love to have him in a world with us, Randy, where he talks about what he saw and lived through in the world of wrestling with Nick Gulas and the Roy Welch days. And I'm sure he could fill in a lot of the holes of things that we talk about with a lot of the background. And I think George probably has a story to tell, and I would love to have him even on this show come and talk with us sometimes about those days.
George was at Eddie Marlin's funeral. I know you were at the visitation, but George, and I thought it was very nice, was at that funeral. And, I'm Facebook friends with George's wife, Julie, so I could send a Facebook message out. And one time I'm going to tell you the story. Julie, like Burt Prentice, was friends with Burt Prentice and used to go down to Jackson and help out Burt promote, and George would never come. But one day Julie came up to me and said, Randy, will you do me a favor? I said, sure, Julie. She said, would you say hi to George? And I just met George one time in my life, just one time in my life. And I talked to him for about 5 minutes, and he's a very nice guy, because I've always heard he had a lisp and he couldn't talk. That was excellent. I mean, that was a good piece that showed fire. Certainly a 74-year-old George Gulas is more mature and has more life experience than he did when he started wrestling in 1974. But I think it's a very interesting subject to do, because we try to educate. Now I'm going to kind of give Adam instructions here. Adam, we're going to show a match, and it's the last match, because I just found this and did it before we went on the air. It's the last video on the clip side that I uploaded on there, and it's Rocket Monroe and Randy Tyler against Dennis Hall and George Gulas. And I'm going to let Michael just talk about Rocket Monroe, Randy Tyler, and Dennis Hall before we go into the video. But at the same time, instructions to Adam. Adam, I think about 10 or 15 seconds into it, you hear the announcer, and you hear the announcer identify himself, and you hear that great voice. As the announcer identifies himself, come out of it and come back to me and Michael, then obviously we can go back to that and we'll have to start over again. I'm thinking 10, 15 seconds, but make sure the announcer knows that. Tell us about Dennis Hall. Tell us about Rocket Monroe and Randy Tyler.
You know, I'm trying to picture Randy Tyler, and I know I've worked with him, so it's not somebody that I readily remember top of mind. Dennis Hall was out of the Chattanooga area. He originally worked with Bearcat Brown before Lynn Rossi did. Dennis trained a lot of people. In fact, I think later in life, he put a lot of the, and if I'm not mistaken, Dennis Hall had something to do with the careers of the fabulous Freebirds of Terry Gordy and Pretty Boy Michael Hayes, and bringing him out of Chattanooga and turning Nick on to them when they were 16 and 17 years old to come to the territory and work as a tag team back before they were the Freebirds. And Dennis was a good technical wrestler. I think I can't remember if he was in an accident or he got hurt in some way or had to retire from wrestling or at an earlier age. But somebody, I think maybe for some reason, I think he may have broke his back. But I think Dennis Hall was a tremendous asset to the Gulas Welch territory back in the day. Rocket Monroe is an interesting character. A lot of people believe that Rocket and Sputnik Monroe were actual real blood brothers. They weren't. And when I worked with him, he was starting to wind down his career, and different than Sputnik, I can assure you. Sputnik, I think, was a lot more outspoken and a lot more, what's the famous thing in the locker room where, what was it? When he was sitting there and he says, Jerry Lawler says, I don't know what stupid looks like or something like that. And he jumped up in the air and he said, Jerry, I know what stupid looks like. And I forget the exact thing, but classic guy. And I always loved Sputnik. Sputnik was one of these guys that when you saw him before the match started, he'd corner you in the ring or in the dressing room and start talking with you. And you'd get so wrapped up in your stories. They'd say, well, where's Michael? You know, he needs to be on the set or whatever. And Sputnik's back there telling a story. Classic gentleman. But Rocket Monroe, a little bit more subdued, but lived off that name. When they were a tag team in the South, they were big.
Yeah, absolutely. A hell of a tag team. So remember, Adam, we'll go ahead and play this tape. But as soon as the announcer identifies himself, then Michael will probably do 10 minutes about the announcer. Remember, we got 10 videos today, 11 videos today, but still I wanted to do this. I want to go into the video and come out of it once the announcer identifies himself. Michael St. John, Randy Hills. This is Talking Memphis Wrestling, talking George Gulas, and we're about to watch a match with George Gulas. Let's roll this tape.
Wrestling fans, this is Sterling Brewer at the City Auditorium in Birmingham, Alabama, watching a tag battle that has Dennis Hall teaming up with George Gulas going against Rocket Monroe and Randy Tyler.
All right.
Brewer, your commentator, Sterling Brewer. That's him. I wish we had a clip of the jeweler that was the Taft Epstein. The jeweler that had that live commercial on Saturday night. You can still watch it and loved watching it. And this time of year, he'd have all these diamonds and watches and all that Christmas decoration. And he'd have that monkey with them cymbals. And he'd start his commercial and that monkey would clap them cymbals, you know. And that was Taft Epstein, your jeweler. Good night, everybody. God, that's great. Great line. Sterling Brewer. What a great person.
Now, let's talk about his background. What did he do? Obviously, back then, announcers at television stations, maybe they do the weather, maybe they do the sports, the news. Maybe they were a salesman. No matter,
Well, he started
I
out.
don't know. So tell us about Sterling Brewer.
He started out as a radio salesman at WAPI AM and FM or AM FM radio and Channel 13 in Birmingham, and then opened Sterling Advertising, which was an advertising agency. And he'd have a group of clients that he would represent, and then he would help them market, whether it be radio, TV, newspaper, billboard, however. And he had a very, very successful advertising agency when I went to Birmingham in radio in 1973. And that's how I actually first met Sterling, not with regards to wrestling, but regards of when he had Sterling Advertising. And he came up to our station to visit our general manager, John Bomer, one day. And I heard he was in the building, and I said, I got to meet this guy. So I walked into John's office, and John introduced me, and I introduced myself to Sterling Brewer. But, when it comes to Birmingham wrestling and people that remember Birmingham wrestling during the Nick Gulas, Roy Welch era, they obviously remember Sterling Brewer.
What I want to do is we will play that tape all the way through this time. And I wanted to play this because the whole issue here is George Gulas, the worst wrestler ever. I'm saying he's not. That is absolutely, I'm not saying he's Briscoe and Thez. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying to say you're the worst ever, I don't think he is. And we've got to pick up, because it goes back to the start of the video, and we'll do that again, and we'll go all the way through the match.
Wrestling fans, this is Sterling Brewer at the City Auditorium in Birmingham, Alabama, watching a tag battle that has Dennis Hall teaming up with George Gulas going against Rocket Monroe and Randy Tyler. This is one fall, a 30-minute time limit. The match has been going on for something less than 10 minutes now. The action has been hot and heavy. George Gulas in the ring right now with Rocket Monroe. It has been a fast exchange from both teams. Randy Tyler stretching over the ropes trying to tag, but Rocket Monroe is not in tag territory at the moment. A match the fans are enjoying very much, and we'll be dropping in on it from time to time to bring you filmed highlights of this match as it progresses. Match progressing, going on. It's been going for 12 or 13 minutes now. Both teams still going strong. At the moment, Randy Tyler in the ring, but he wants out. George Gulas in there. He's been straining to make a tag. Randy Tyler is successful. Rocket Monroe coming in, kicks George Gulas in the head. Both teams going very strong, working well together. An interesting match, and they seem very evenly matched. There's been, of course, a great deal of rules violating being done by Rocket Monroe and Randy Tyler. Gulas makes the tag. Here comes Dennis Hall into the ring. Watch him go. Dennis Hall working on Randy Tyler and Rocket Monroe. Puts Tyler on the mat. Monroe on the ropes. George Gulas in the ring too. Wild action. Here they go together. Watch it. Both Randy Tyler and Rocket Monroe on the mat. George Gulas in the ring. Going up for the elbow smash on the back of the neck. We'll pick up the action again in a few moments. George Gulas using the elbow on Rocket Monroe. He's got him back in the corner. He's been pounding away at the head. It climbed the ropes and was pounding at him, hurls him into the turnbuckles in the neutral corner of the ring. Outside the ring, Rocket Monroe's head bleeding, cut open by one of those blows or the boot from Dennis Hall. I believe it was from those blows from George Gulas. However, he's bleeding profusely, staggering around, having difficulty seeing, blood streaming down from his forehead into his eyes, down his nose. On the ropes he goes and comes off as George Gulas plants a big one in the midsection. Gulas on him for 1, 2. Randy Tyler came in to interfere. Dennis Hall prevented it. Rocket Monroe came out from under, but Gulas has got him. Gulas had him in the Boston Crab. Randy Tyler used some weapon, wrapped it around his fist, hit Gulas in the back of the head. Rocket Monroe covered him for the count of 1, 2, 3. Gulas has not moved yet. He's down and out. Rocket Monroe and Randy Tyler getting their heads lifted in victory. Randy Tyler used some object on George Gulas, knocked him senseless, and Rocket Monroe covered him. Gulas had the Boston Crab on Rocket Monroe. Monroe bleeding profusely, being helped from the ring by his partner Randy Tyler, but in the ring, George Gulas has not moved yet. Dennis Hall complaining to the referee about some weapon being used. Trying to lift Gulas now, trying to drag him to the apron. George Gulas out cold. He had the Boston Crab on Rocket Monroe, had him down for the count, but Randy Tyler came in and interfered. He used some weapon on the head of George Gulas. He has not moved yet under his own power. Dennis Hall and Jerry Vinson helping him from the ring, but he seems totally helpless at the moment. Here comes help from the dressing room. Two of the referees coming. They're bodily carrying him from the ring. Dennis Hall coming by. Dennis, what was it he did?
I don't know. He hit him with something. I've got to get back with him. He hit him in some of the head.
Okay, Dennis Hall going with George Gulas to the dressing room. The decision right now stands as Rocket Monroe and Randy Tyler are winning the match.
Hey, that's a fallen match.
Yeah.
My quick thoughts about that is Nick Gulas, the promoter, George Gulas, the promoter's son. Now, in that match, the person they got the heat on was who? George Gulas. The person they beat was who? George Gulas. The person they carried out of the ring was who? George Gulas. So I thought that was an interesting thing. That's my quick little take. We got so much to do. Let's wrap up the George Gulas story with your thoughts on that match and also how much you enjoyed listening to Sterling one more time.
The great thing was at the very end, you got to see him. The folks got to see Sterling Brewer at the very end. That was great. You know, and looking at that match, was it a great match? No. Was it a good match? It was good. It was okay. Here's the deal. If you take this, this is sort of my rankings. This is my college football playoff rankings thing every Tuesday night. Here's your Mendoza. Here's your 50% line. And when you rank a wrestler, you rank him above average, 50% being average, above average, below average, poor, awful, above average, great, outstanding, superstar. And if you take a 1 to 7 thing, I think George is a 3.5, maybe a 3. And to be honest with you, Dutch Mantel's a 4. Or excuse me, if the mid range and a 7 is the mid range, and 7 would be 3.5. So George would be a 3.5 on good days. Dutch to me is a 4, between a 4 and a 5. To me, Jerry Lawler is a 7. To me, Harley Race is a 7. The Rock is a 7. Steve Austin is a 7. Hulk Hogan's a 6. And I think when you start looking at it that way, I don't think there's any way, shape, or form that George Gulas is the worst wrestler ever.
Just real quick on this, let's talk about promoter's son. How would you rank Cody Rhodes?
I don't think there's a comparison to Cody Rhodes or even his brother and Dusty than to Nick and George Gulas, or George brought up Greg Gagne and Vern. It's two different worlds. The difference being that Dusty was never, ever a quote unquote promoter. He was a matchmaker, but there was always somebody. He worked for Eddie Graham. He worked for Georgia Championship Wrestling, but he wasn't the promoter. Paul Jones was the promoter, quote unquote. He worked for the Crockett's. Crockett's were the promoters. And I think that's a different world. You're talking about purebred promoter sons, and I'm sure there's a bunch more that I'm forgetting right now. But that's a different world because the heat's on the promoter to begin with, especially if the payoffs, if the boys. I haven't never heard a promoter in my life in wrestling that people say, by gosh, he was God. He was wonderful. There's never been anybody like him. There was heat on Sam Munchnick. There was heat on Paul Bosch. There was heat on the Crockett's. There was heat on Vince McMahon Sr. And God knows there's heat on Vince McMahon Jr. There's heat on Tony. I think the promoters are heat seekers, or not heat seekers, but draw the heat just from their job, just from what they have to do in the wrestling business. So I think it's a different world. George Goulas, Nick Goulas, Greg Gagne, Vern Gagne, those kind of things versus Dusty Rhodes and his two kids.
Hey, we got a new viewer on YouTube. Stuck for, I think, is the thing. Said, hello, all. I didn't realize there was a live YouTube podcast. This is Talking Memphis Wrestling. We'll tell you a little bit or show you a little bit what it's about, and we'll replay right now, Adam, the opening of Talking Memphis Wrestling, as we have tons more as we talk Memphis Wrestling.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hill and special guests.
Has some super stuff on the classic ribs in Memphis Wrestling. We got about 3 or 4 videos of the early days, or a video of the early days of Bobby Eaton, and then the later stages of Bobby Eaton here today, talking about the ribs. We just got a ton of stuff. And I want to do some cards of the week real quick and go through this with quick comments from Adam after each card. The very last card that's in the design, the very last one was from November, the last one that I 1905. Just thought you'd be interested. This is November of 1975, and I thought it'd be interesting to talk about this card, or at least see what wrestling was like in 1975. Bearcat Brown opening match against Mr. Arakawa. Then the second match of the night was the Bounty Hunters with manager Jim Kent against Don Green, great wrestler, former U.S. junior heavyweight champion, the brother of Mean Al Green. Al and Don were the heavily bodies. This match, Don Green was the babyface team with Lynn Rossi's son, Joey Rossi. And I want to know, after we come out of this, if Michael was ever around Joey Rossi. Then the semifinal match of the night in 1975, in his rookie year as a professional wrestler, Tommy Rich, before he was Wildfire, teamed with his mentor, Tojo Yamamoto, to go against the Interns in a Southern Tag Team Championship match with Dr. Ken Ramey at ringside. In the final match of the night, the winner would receive a future NWA World Championship match. Bob Armstrong against the King, Jerry Lawler. Talk Michael St. John about anything you want to talk about on this card, but especially because I don't know much about him, Joey Rossi.
Well, first of all, can we put the card back up? Let me, because I don't know by memory. Just a couple of things. First of all, there was a setup for Jerry Lawler to take on Briscoe because Nick brought Bob Armstrong in from Georgia, and he used Bob a lot in Birmingham and in Chattanooga. Rarely did you see him in Nashville, but this was a thing to get Jerry and Briscoe a match the following week. Joey Rossi. Now, let's talk about what Dutch talks about, worst wrestler ever. You don't hear Joey Rossi's name come into that. But to me, Joey Rossi was not as, and one of our listeners has said that George was more of a tool with no skills. He was more skilled on the basketball court, I can assure you. But George wasn't. He looked clumsy. He wasn't as clumsy. It was one of these things where his body just was bigger than his skills, I guess you might say. And he'd put on a lot of weight, by the way, to get in the ring, and he was still looking skinny. But Joey Rossi, to me, there was Lynn wanted his son Joey pushed. And it ended up being a crack and a schism between Nick Goulas and Lynn Rossi over that, because Lynn wanted Joey pushed, George wanted to be pushed by his daddy, and that came in between that relationship between Lynn and Nick. And I think that a lot of people don't probably realize that. But I never thought Joey didn't have a lot of skills. He looked overweight in the ring. He didn't move very fluently. His dad was a consummate professional in the 60s and 50s. And unfortunately, the gene pool probably was more the mama than the daddy in that situation, as was the situation with George. So, that's, I worked with Joey several times. In fact, when the Poffos ran some opposition after Nick had been bought out, they used Joey quite a few matches. But if you want to talk about worst wrestler of all time, and if Dutch is throwing George into that pot, somebody needs to throw Joey Rossi into that pot. And so
now somebody, Jerry Allen, I'm not saying he just mentions the name. I'm not saying that he's mentioning it as, to me, it's one of the exceptions and certainly one of the best. The Tennessee territory, as far as the Memphis end, had two great promoter sons, Brian Lawler and Jeff Jarrett. Absolutely fantastic, respected. And if there's a George Goulas syndrome or a Greg Gagne syndrome or Joey Rossi syndrome, Brian and Jeff didn't have it.
Well, but look at this and think about this. Now I almost called you Nick. Sorry about that. Think about this, Randy. Jeff never asked his daddy to be pushed, and his daddy never pushed Jeff because he was pushing Jerry Lawler. And I mean, Jeff may have been in some matches that a little earlier than maybe deserving of a normal guy, but he was the promoter's son. And Jeff trained hard and worked hard. And you look at Jeff Jarrett today, I dare say Jeff Jarrett is one of the 3 or 4 best professional wrestlers in the world, all territories, all companies together. Jeff Jarrett is in the top 5 today. I
agree.
I totally think that. And you watch him work, it's incredible. I stopped to watch a Jerry Jarrett match on AEW. The rest of the stuff, I'm in, I'm out, or whatever. When Jeff's on, it's gonna be a wrestling match, and it's gonna be a damn good one. And the same way with Brian Lawler, Jerry Lawler would not let Brian Christopher use his name because he did not want people to think that, to do a comparison between dad and son. And Brian never got a big push from Jerry Jarrett or Jerry Lawler. So again, I think there's a different circumstance there.
I want to do a couple more cards, and we need to move on quick with this. Adam, this is the second of the cards that I posted on the design part. This is from December the 23rd. We just got finished with Thanksgiving. That's why I'm doing these 2 cards. And what a difference in 10 years these cards are. And we'll run over both of them real quick, and then Michael will have his comments. The first card is November the 23rd, 1978. Terry Sawyer against Bearcat Brown in the opening. Ladies match, lady wrestler Heather Feather against manager Chuck Malone. The Bounty Hunters against Coco Ware and Jackie Welch. Don Fargo with Big Al Green against Robert Gibson. And the main event, Handsome Jimmy Valiant and Wayne Ferris against Superstar Bill Dundee and Tommy Gilbert. Let's look at the card 10 years after that. On November the 24th, 1988. That card is loaded. November 24th, 1988. Mean Mike Miller against Bearcat Brown. Second match was Sid Vicious against Alan Reynolds. Third match was the RPMs. And I think I miswrote that. Can you read that? Because I don't think at all Bearcat Brown would have been there in 1988.
It was Brickhouse Brown.
Brickhouse Brown, okay, for that. Thank you for that. Second match was Sid Vicious against Alan Reynolds in Sid Vicious's rookie match. The Rock and Roll RPMs, Mike Davis and Tommy Lane against Superstar Bill Dundee and Todd Morton. Then, what a match this was. Nature Boy Buddy Landell against rookie Scott Steiner. Then a 6-person tag team match with Robert Fuller, Jimmy Golden, and Miss Sylvia against Gary Young, Cactus Jack, and Downtown Bruno. Then a world-class lightweight title, Eric Embry defending against Jeff Jarrett. Then a cage battle royal, first time ever in Jackson. And the final match was a lights-out match, Jerry Lawler versus Kerry Von Erich. Quick thoughts, quick on both cards, Michael St. John.
Boy, this was loaded, and this was about the time that Jerry Jarrett was working both with Vern and had bought, or was about to buy a WCCW, a loaded card. The card before this, there was a lot of patchwork on that card, in my opinion, and there's some great talent on that. But you got manager Al Green. I do not remember Chuck Malone. I'm sorry. Jackie Welch, of course, a great lineage there. Mobile-based guy. That's a good card, but a lot of patchwork. Names you don't normally see together in this card. And then that first card we've already talked about.
Want to talk a little bit now about one of the nicest guys, I think we'll agree, one of the nicest guys in the history of the wrestling business. And I guarantee you, if you type in, I don't want you to do that. Type in, who's the nicest professional wrestler ever? And I'll be shocked if Bobby Eaton wouldn't come up in that. Bobby Eaton was born August the 14th, 1958, passed away August the 4th, 2021, at 62 years old. For a period of 4 or 5 months, Michael, I don't even know if you knew this, while I was running Power Pro Wrestling, and Bobby was hired as a trainer for the WWE and was helping develop wrestlers in that era at that time, and he was living with me. But we're going to start a little earlier than that. We are going to go way back in the capsule to watch one of Bobby's first interviews. He's involved with talking about Tojo, but this is Bobby Eaton and another announcer from that part of the country, the Chattanooga area, Harry Thornton. Won't you? Because Bobby got overshadowed because his manager for decades was Jim Cornette, one of the greatest talkers of all time. But for those, and Bobby didn't like doing interviews. He really didn't like doing interviews. But I want you to see this video from Chattanooga, Tennessee. This is a young, beautiful Bobby Eaton on Talk to Memphis Wrestling.
And we have one half of the main event coming out. And
Barry Thornton, you know you've had a lot of tough tag teams around here, such as Terry Gordy, Michael Hayes, the Blind Bombers. You've had a lot of tough competition, like Nick Goulas brings in the toughest competition. But right now, you're looking at the greatest tag team, Harry Thornton, that's ever stepped foot inside a ring, inside this Mid-America territory, Harry Thornton. And we want to say one thing about Rocky Brewer. Rocky Brewer, you have stuck your nose in the wrong business, boy. You have busted my head open on occasion of times. I don't know how many times he's blacked my eyes, Harry Thornton. He has hurt the great Togo. Tojo Yamamoto has our contract. He is our manager. And what he tells us to do, we do it. Now, he's running around with a guy that's not a Japanese guy. He's from Korea, right, Togo? He is from Korea, Mr. Oshiro. Now, we don't like guys like that. He couldn't cut it, so we got rid of him. Now, Rocky Brewer, anytime these two men right here can get a hold of you, boy, we don't care where it's at. Like I said, Harry Thornton, we're out for the greatest competition that Nick Goulas can bring in, and you do know that he brings us some good competition, or we wouldn't be here. But we do want you, Rocky Brewer, anytime, any place that we can get our hands on you. Tell him something, Togo. Tell him.
They're no good. Player Oshiro, no good.
no good.
No good.
Oshiro, his mother came from Korea.
Yeah.
He's not Japanese. I'm Japanese.
He's a
Bobby
great
San, myself, Great Togo. Number one, Ichiban.
Right,
I know
Thornton.
Yeah, what
You know what happened?
What'd you do?
Oshiro could not take it. Now, when a man could not take it in the organization that we have, we're in for the money. Now, we saw fit that this guy wasn't going to make the Japanese connection any money at all. So we had to get rid of him. We shipped him out. We shipped him out like a bag of rice that he is. He's no good, Harry Thornton. Rocky Brewer's no good. He's got a lot of tag team partners he's going to bring in, like Bill Dundee, George Goulas. For 1 minute, I want to get a hold of him. And Bill Dundee, Jimmy Valiant. We want every one of them to come and try to take on the greatest tag team that has ever set foot inside the ring in the Mid-America area that is promoted by Nick Goulas.
That's your opinion.
That is the opinion. That is a fact. We want all the competition. The Fargos have got the Southern Tag Team belt. We want the Southern Tag Team belt. We want the Mid-America Tag Team belt.
So.
He's the Mid-America champion, Harry Thornton. The Mid-America champion. And from now on, we're going to have so much gold around our waist that they're going to be holding the whole stock on us. You understand what I'm talking about? And all the rednecks out there, when you want to come in to see the greatest tag team right here, the great Togo and beautiful Bobby Eaton, Harry Thornton. And don't you forget it. And you people out there in Redneck Land, don't forget it.
What do you think of that interview with Harry Thornton leading it, and Bobby Eaton was the sole mouthpiece of that interview?
You know, that's one of the better interviews I've seen Bobby do. I mean, he got hot. He was on point. I mean, he stumbled around a little bit, but I mean, as Bobby was not known for his talking. And you mentioned that he didn't like to do interviews. They were promoting a show here. They were about 2 months before Bobby passed away here in this community. And Jack Lord from down in the Gadsden area came up and brought Bobby to the studio. And we hadn't seen each other in a while. We had a great time together and went out, grabbed lunch and all that. And I said, let's tape an interview. I want to use it on the morning show. Bobby wouldn't talk. Jack had to do all the talk. Bobby didn't like the interview. And Bobby and I had known each other for 40 years, you know. So, but that was a good interview for Bobby Eaton. In Bobby Eaton's defense, that was a good interview.
Let me real quick. Jeff Frog Wheeler had a comment, and I will just answer this real quick, and then we'll get into the rest of the videos because it's 10 minutes after 8, 50 minutes to go. A lot of videos to go. Now, Jeff Frog Wheeler is saying, what was the average pay for the big names in the territories? Was it true that they had other jobs in a territory? No, that's not true, because in a territory they wrestled 6 or 7 nights a week, and from first match all the way to the main event. Now, the enhancement talent that worked the televisions would have jobs, but and how much the house was, if it was $30,000 or $3,000 or $300, that's how the pay. Normally, the wrestlers would divide up 30%. The top names in the Memphis territory during a hot period of time could make, a top guy could make $2,500 a week, $3,000 a week in a hot time. In a bad time, they could make $400 a week. It depended on if you draw. Now, I said earlier that Bobby Eaton lived with me in 2001. Just so many fond memories, and we became such great friends behind the scenes on air when Bobby Eaton came out, and he didn't like promoters. I didn't know that, and we're going to watch that video right now. This is about a 7-8 minute video, but I wanted to show you, Michael, storytelling of Memphis Wrestling and Power Pro Wrestling and what we're doing, and I'm showing 3 weeks worth of this to show what we were doing here. And this is the first attack. This is part 1 of the story.
Ready now for more action here on Power Pro Wrestling Action. Hey, Coach, we've got more coming up.
Oh, we got plenty more coming up, and I like that, kid, because we have the same name. Yeah. Great name.
That's right, you do. What about that?
Oh, okay, finally, we're going to find out what the heck's going on.
What's up with this?
Brandon, I'm begging to find out what's going on. I'm kept in the dark. Court, find out what's going on.
What is this about? Corey Maxson, come over here. Do you know what he is? I know you know. I know he's a man. This is a preacher. Do you know what this is? What? This is a tuxedo. Just a few minutes ago, you saw Bobby Eaton in a tuxedo Do you have any idea where this is going? I promised Bobby Eaton a present that would keep him with me, that would make him forget about his family back home in the Carolinas. Right here today, on the Power Hour, I am going to get Bobby Eaton married. So
he underworking you.
No, I'm going to get him married.
You're crazy. You can't get him married. What are you talking? He's already married, Brandon. What do you think this is? This is Memphis, Tennessee.
I think Bobby Eaton's a Mormon.
He can't have 2 wives.
He's a Mormon. Yes, he can. If you're a Mormon, you can have as many wives as you want.
I can't do that, Jonathan.
I wish I could.
How can he have 2 wives? That's not right. Here's Bobby Eaton. He's ducked out in a ducked
I don't know if I agree with this.
Now,
who is the minister here, by the way?
Let me introduce to you the star of the show. I'll be right back.
What is this? Brandon Baxter, Bobby Eaton, all decked out in tails. They got a minister here with him. Bobby, what is wrong with you? Has he hypnotized you or something? You're already married. You can't be married twice.
Stop the pain.
You guys are crazy. Oh, and here's the bride is victorious.
What in the world is this?
Oh, this is ridiculous.
Absolutely the best man.
Off your rocker, Brandon Baxter. Are you the best man and giving away the bride, too? Nah, I guess you got a bunch of friends, huh, Bobby?
You got a ring.
Have the ring.
I think he's a dupe. Yeah, I think he's a dupe.
Dearly beloved.
Oh, 1 second.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered together here in the sight of God and in the power hour to join together this man and woman.
Stop the pain.
Bobby, will you take this woman to be ready?
Yeah, here comes somebody, the superstar. I can't believe you guys out here. Bill, they got a minister out here talking about everybody gathering together for a wedding.
Brother, let me give you a little bit of advice here. This is the first time in 30 years I've been speechless. You're the lowest form of a human being I've ever been around in my life. And you, Huzzy, you ain't much better. Now, B.L. Eaton, this ain't going on nowhere. What you need to do is just go back to the back and tell the WWF you quit and go back to Charlotte to your wife and your kids, because this guy's got you all turned around backwards. So let's go.
Yeah, that sounds good to me, Bill.
Wait, are you saying that Bobby can't be married again? Is that what you're saying?
No, he can't be married again, Brandon. What do y'all think this is?
Hey, this is...
Yeah,
you don't think he can be married? You don't think he
Come
can?
on, Brandon. This isn't funny.
He is from Alabama. And you know what Alabama people are? They are Mormons. He can have more than one wife if he wants more than one wife.
He's married. He can have 1,000 wives, but he's not going to have more than one.
Well, Dundee, you should thank me because I'm saving your dysfunctional family. I'm saving those snot-nosed brats. They need a mother that they can respect. So put her there, Pop.
Hey, come on, Brandon. We don't need that. Yeah. And Dundee, highly upset, and I can't much, but look out, Coach. What in the world? That's his father-in-law, Bill Dundee, being jumped on by his son-in-law, Bobby Eaton. Hey, you guys are nuts. Come on, Brandon.
Are going on down.
He's got Victoria's shoe. Hey, come on, Bobby. You guys get out of here. They grab the minister, and they take off.
But did they ever actually consummate the
They've
marriage?
absolutely lost it, Coach.
Did
Let's
they
take a
actually
break.
get married?
Bill, you okay?
We got out of order a little bit with that, and we'll get back on track in just a second. I wanted to announce that show right there was the last show we had with WWE Developmental Talent. Jerry Lawler had quit the WWE 2 or 3 days later, quit the WWE because his wife, Stacy, was fired. Lawler, in protest, quit. Because of that, the WWE, Bruce Pritchard, had told me the news. I thought I had it taken care of, but it didn't happen. And Bruce Pritchard told me that they would not allow their WWE contracted talent on a show with with Jerry Lawler on it. So I called Jim Ross trying to go after Bruce over Bruce's head and say, hey, I will book Lawler with my guys. They won't be on the same TV show with Lawler ever. I can assure you of that. Then JR called Bruce. Bruce called Vince. Vince vetoed it. And then I had the choice. Then Bruce says it's going to be either the WWE developmental talent or Jerry Lawler. I said, I'll take Jerry Lawler. So that was it as they pulled. And Jonathan Coachman, coach, was the special guest announcer as Dave Brown was on vacation. Again, we went out of order there, and I wish we would have showed that, but that's okay. Michael, what did you think about that wedding?
I like the angle. I like the angle a lot. I think it could have been some of those punches. I don't think Bobby wanted to throw anything real hard at his father-in-law. To be honest with you, the girl, that wasn't Sherry Martel, was it?
No, that was Victoria
from the WWE.
From the WWE,
Okay.
She was the developmental guy. I thought that, just like somebody said, PJ says, personal issue draws money.
Absolutely.
Out of order, we want to go back to the tape of Bobby Eaton attacking Randy Hills on Power Pro Wrestling. And Victoria is Lisa Marie Vachon, is the name, the real name of Victoria, which was a great, great, great talent.
Was she a daughter of Mad Dog Vachon?
No, she was not.
Okay.
She was not. So let's go ahead and watch that video of Bobby Eaton attacking Randy Hales.
Just a couple of minutes with Lance Cade coming in.
Hey, buddy, you know, a moment ago I was talking about what happened at the showdown at the Nut House, what beautiful Bobby Eaton had done. Courtesy of the Cat. Let's call for that tape. Can we roll it up there, guys?
Watch this.
Yeah, take a look.
Oh, look at it. Here comes Eaton and Brandon. All right. Let me get out here and talk. All right, they don't have the tape, and now I know why. He's just ripping the tape to shreds here. I just don't want the fans to see what happened. All right, I'm sure you have your own version of what happened since you've destroyed the evidence.
You know what my version of what is not going to be played is? Bobby Eaton has been disrespected in the wrestling business for long enough.
Respect is something you earn, and for a while he did that. I'm not sure about this as a way to do it, though.
He has earned that respect for his entire career. You can ask the people on the internet. You can ask the people in the wrestling sheets. You can ask the wrestlers in the dressing room, and they will all tell you that they respect beautiful Bobby Eaton. But do you know, Dave, who hasn't shown the proper respect to Bobby Eaton? Any idea who hasn't?
I guess you're going to say we haven't, and that Bill Dundee perhaps.
Of professional wrestling haven't, and it all started in Memphis years back. When Bobby Eaton came in here, he was a future superstar. Everybody thought Bobby was the future of the business. But whether he was the first match or the fifth match, he always stole the show. But there were two guys who held Bobby Eaton back. One of them being Jerry Lawler. The other one being his father-in-law, Bill Dundee. So
I disagree with that.
They held him back, so Bobby decided he needed to move on. He needed to go somewhere where he would be respected, so they went to Mid-South Wrestling, to Bill Watts' company in Louisiana. Bill Watts, he was on his butt. Their company was struggling. They were drawing hundreds of people. When the Midnight Express went in there, you know what happened? The territory popped. They put 30,000 people in the New Orleans Superdome. Is that true?
That is true, but I'm not sure it was just the arrival of the Midnight Express that did that.
Give me the microphone. They are the sole reason why Bill Watts' territory popped. But what happened? Bill Watts, he was greedy. He didn't want to pay them the money that they deserved. So they called up Dusty Rhodes, and they called up Jim Crockett, and they got ready to go to the Carolinas. But what happened? They were told that they had to go to Texas, to World Class. They spent 6 miserable months in World Class Wrestling, and then they went to the Carolinas. You know what they did there? They went worldwide. They allowed Jim Crockett to expand his company worldwide. They had scaffold matches. They went from small buildings to soccer and football stadiums, all because of Bobby Eaton.
Well, his history is all very interesting.
And he was told that he would have a job with the NWA and WCW for life. He'd have a job for life. Tell him what happened, Bob.
Well, Brandon, about a year ago, I'm sitting in my house in Charlotte, North Carolina. I seen that old dingbat wife of mine out to get my check. She comes back in, there's no check there. So I called the office of WCW. I asked them where my check was. They said, oh, Bob, you've been released. So that's all fine, that's good. Then once again, last Wednesday night in Jonesboro, Arkansas, I got screwed. Screwed by the cat.
You see something that runs there?
Screwed by Lawler. Screwed by Bill Dundee.
If that's true, let's see the videotape evidence.
No. Now the referee seen right in front of his eyes that Jerry Lawler pile dropped me, which is an illegal move. He should have disqualified me.
It's illegal in Tennessee, but you were in Arkansas.
So what I want right now, I want the cat out here.
Well, I don't think the cat's even here yet. She'll be here later on today. We got the bikini contest. She hasn't arrived at the building yet. I at least haven't seen her.
All right, how about Lawler?
No, Lawler's working for the XFL. He's not even in town today. He's not scared. He's working for XFL. Bill Dundee is scouting for new talent. He's not here today. So you're out of luck.
What? You're not going to have a show today until I get somebody out here that's in charge. Okay?
Oh, we are going to have a show today.
No matches, no interviews. We're not leaving until we get answers. And until he gets respect. We're not going anywhere.
I better get some respect out of you.
You'll get respect when you earn it, like I tell you. And you're not earning it very well by tearing up videotapes that we were going to show what happened. All right, you want somebody in authority? How about the owner, the founder, the president?
Right now, to get out of here right now, we have a show to do, matches to do.
Thank you.
We're not going to put up with this anymore.
Hey, will you do me a favor? Will you turn around and run out there so I can yell, run, Forrest, run!
Okay, very funny. Very funny. You're a jerk. You've been a jerk for 5 years. I'm telling you, Eden, we have a TV show to do. Get out of here now.
Hey, I want the man in charge, Commissioner Bill Dundee, out here right now.
Commissioner's not here. This is the owner. He's the boss of the commissioner.
Oh, you're the owner. You're the promoter.
Let me say this.
Well, say it.
18 years ago, I was an 18-year-old kid, right? 18-year-old kid ring announcer. I'm not a kid. I'm not an announcer. I own this company, Bobby.
Oh, you're the owner.
You're exactly right. I'm not going to put up with you. I'm not going to put up with you. I'm going to tell you to get out of here. You're not going to run over him or everybody else. We're tired of this.
Oh, no. You're just like Jerry Jarrett. You're like Eddie Marlin, Bill Watts, Terry Golden, Fritz Von Erich, Dusty Rhodes, Jim Crockett. You're all a bunch of scumbags.
Hey, that's not get out of here.
Come on. Brandon. Hey, come on, guys. Let's ring the bell back here. Hey. Bobby Eaton just jumped on Randy.
Totally uncalled for.
Yeah, it's uncalled for. Randy's not a wrestler.
You don't earn respect like that, let me tell you, Eaton. Come on, leave him alone.
Brandon Baxter, Bobby Eaton. Here comes the referee.
Uh-oh, look out. Eaton grabs him.
Oh, no.
Hey.
Call the ref out.
We're going to treat our officials like that, Eaton.
No, that ain't the right way to treat the guy. He runs in there to help him out. He just throws him out of there.
Yeah, you don't get respect like this. Here comes some help, too. But.
Oh, they throw him out of there, yeah.
He's thrown out of the ring.
Well, it's going to take more than one guy at a time to get these lunatics off.
Uh-oh, Bobby, man, he just nailed him.
Everybody, yeah.
Here comes some more help.
Push him over the top. Come on, Bobby. Cry out loud.
Goodness.
Here comes the Bulldog. That'll help even things up. He grabs Eaton. Now the Bulldog going after him. Baxter's keeping everybody out.
Here comes Bradley.
Oh, here comes Steve Bradley.
Bulldog.
Oh, come on.
No help for Randy by all of this going on. And now Baxter back over to Randy, and there's Eaton. Look at this.
Eaton dragging Randy Hales by his suit coat and by his pants. Pulls him over near the corner. Oh, he's going to climb for that rope, Dave. That's that Alabama jam. We don't need that. Come on, Bobby. There he is. Oh, my goodness.
Man,
well, that big leg drop.
He landed right on top of Randy. Come on. Get him out of there. Yeah, grab him, Corey. Let's. See if you can get him out of there. Oh, well, now Bradley grabs him and hey, get security over here. Get out of the ring now, or we're calling the police and we're taking you out. You get out of the ring now, we're going to call the police and take you out of here. Get out of the ring. Out. Help him out of here. Out. Get out of the studio. Out of here. Yeah, you don't get respect that way. You get out of here. What do we got?
All right, Randy Hill's talking Memphis Wrestling. First of all, it's available. You can watch Bobby Eaton Attacks Randy Hills on YouTube. You can find it, or you can watch the archives of this show that will be on YouTube, my channel, youtube.com/Randy Hills. Michael St. John, do you think I was trying to get some heat on Brandon Baxter and Bobby Eaton? And do you think that I was sacrificing myself by laying in the middle of the ring and let probably 48-year-old Bobby Eaton go to the top rope and do the Alabama Jam? What did you think?
I'll tell you,
about
that's good stuff. And yes, absolutely. That was, you talk about a way to get heat. That's how you produce heat. And I'll tell you who helped sell that as well as you did, and you did a great job of selling that, was Dave Brown, because Dave really got into the moment. And I'm like everybody that's president. Dave was mad. I agree. Dave was pissed off. He was mad. And that was great.
You know, I get aggravated that a lot of people think that Memphis Wrestling ended in 1997. It didn't, because Power Pro had great memorable moments, including one last clip from Dundee, the Bobby Eaton Dundee family drama will be the last Bobby Eaton video we show today. And this is a heavy angle. This is a heavy angle and an unusual angle and a personal angle, which draws money. Is certainly, rest in peace, beautiful Bobby Eaton, my friend Bobby Eaton, that passed away on August the 4th, 2021 at 62 years old, as we watch this video.
There he is. There he is. Now, yeah. Superstar Bill Dundee, commissioner of Power Pro Wrestling, something in his hand. And let's find out exactly what's on his mind. I think I know a lot of the stuff that's on his mind. It's what's been going on. Hello, Bill.
There he is, the superstar. Good to have you back here this week, Bill, here on the Powwow.
Well, I had to take last week off, and it just went all to the dogs last week. And Bobby Eaton, brother, I don't know how I'm going to get into. I just don't know how I'm going to get into this boy's head. But anyway, we're going to try today, because I think I got the medicine today.
Yeah.
Now, Brandon Baxter, I've never liked you from day one. All right, well, since you showed up with 4 or 5 years ago, a little bald. No, he had hair then, wasn't it? Long and blonde.
Yeah.
And you know why it was long and blonde then? Because Steve Williams, now Stone Cold Steve Austin, has a bald head. He has a bald head. The man wants to be Stone Cold. Well, brother, you ain't even lukewarm. So bring your little fanny out here. I got a few things I got to say to you, Miss Victoria and Bobby Eaton. Come with me.
Well, you know, Bobby's going to come if you ask for Brandon Baxter, so we don't need any more confrontations. You know what they pulled on Randy Hills out here last week, but here they are, and yeah, they got Victoria along with them. Beautiful Bobby Eaton, Victoria, Brandon Baxter. We don't need any trouble out here now, guys. You know they sucker punched Randy out here last week. Watch him, Bill.
Don't be hanging on to him.
What is that about? Yeah.
You don't need to be hanging on to that woman. You got a wife at home and 3 kids and talking to 3 kids. I got to get something into you. You need to, well, I don't even know what's going on here. You need to just get out of town. And you need to get back to Dallas, Texas. Now, pay attention. I'm talking to you. You know who that is?
What are you doing with that?
Never mind that. Just clean up.
Oh. Get a shot of that.
And pay attention.
Janice,
Punk.
there we go.
Never mind what I'm doing with that. Not only do I have the picture, I want you to look at the picture when you hear the young fella on the phone. That is your son and my grandson, and you've never called home since you've been in Memphis. You ain't done that. I don't even know if you've even sent him any money. Well, pay attention, because we got him on the telephone, and he's... Now, pay attention.
Oh, he's on the telephone. Bill,
Hey, Dad, it's Dylan. I don't know if you realize how upset Mom, Dusty, and Taryn are. You're in Memphis, we're in Charlotte. We keep getting these shapes in the mail from Pop. I can't believe what I'm seeing. I mean, you're not even acting like my dad. You need to stay away from that bald-headed idiot. He's not good for you. I love my Pop, and I love you too. I want you guys to please make up for the sake of our family. That's all I have to say. I love you.
Wow. That's Bobby Eaton's 14-year-old son that's talking to him. Bobby's out of here.
He's out of here.
Yeah, but the only problem is he's got Victoria hanging with him.
Oh, no, Victoria. Now, have you ever heard of this saying, brother? Now, pay attention. Blood is thicker than water. That's his boy, my grandson, and I think you just lost your #1 wrestler, Punk.
Oh, how you like them apples, Brandon Baxter?
You know, Bill just said that blood is thicker than water, right? Well, what I'm paying Bobby Eaton is green, and green is thicker than both blood and water. Bobby will think this through, and it'll work out right.
Brandon, why would you even want to consider doing that? Why even do that? Hopefully Bobby will come to his senses and get away from guys like Brandon Baxter and people like Victoria. That's certainly no good for him.
Bill.
We mentioned it earlier, but Stuckifer from YouTube, I think he's watching this show for the very first time. I'm Randy Hills, Michael St. John, the co-host, legendary Memphis Wrestling announcer, and legendary Hall of Fame radio broadcaster and owner is with us today. You said that wrestling goes soap opera, and that's what Memphis Wrestling's all about. About a minute and a half before we have to move on to the next video, Michael, what's your thoughts on the Bobby Eaton family
I think
drama?
it's pronounced Stucifer. You make Stucifer.
Stucifer,
But I think he's made some really good points here and really good comments. That's what Memphis Wrestling was. I mean, it is soap opera. It is storytelling. It's personal issues draw money. We say that every week on this show, and you see it here. I personally think Corey Macklin did much, much better working as a Power Pro announcer than he ever did working with Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler. I think Corey sort of bloomed, if you would, because I think you gave him the opportunity to really show the talent that he had, and he was a very talented individual, and God rest his soul. But I really was impressed by how Corey Macklin helped put that and sell that together. That's a great, I'd never seen that before, Randy. That is a great, great angle.
We got pretty serious, and Adam Dunn, our producer, agrees, and I don't think Corey gets the respect that he deserves, and rest in peace to Corey Macklin. We've been awful serious lately, but I thought it would be funny to go to the Jerry Lawler show back in the day, as Jerry the King Lawler hosted a program on Sunday mornings, the Jerry Lawler show from TV5. They would record it Saturday after the wrestling show is over. This is Tojo Yamamoto telling a heated rib story. This is funny, folks.
Remember the time when we were wrestling in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and Jackie Fargo was on the card, and this is something I don't know if a lot of people realize, but we'd try to have a little fun in the dressing room every
Yeah, there's no good Jackie Fargo. One time he, I go to the ring, and when I come back, I don't know what, I can't say the word, but when I wear my clothes, I jump up and down, everything. I thought somebody, Jackie Fargo put some hot pepper or something, and I drove from Jonesboro to Nashville, Tennessee, jumping up and down like that in my car. So after that, I find out, Jackie Fargo make me so mad, and I found out you the instigator.
Okay, what happened? Jackie Fargo went out to wrestle, and you and Jerry Jarrett took some of this. When you have an injury, they have this atomic bomb that you put on a bruise or something, and you guys put that all in Jackie's, in his underwear and things like that.
Not me, Lord, not me. I know because it's tough for Jackie Fargo because he go in the ring, I see him doing all these things. I said, what's the matter, Jackie Fargo? He said, told you, I think you and Jerry Jarrett put something in my tights. I told Mr. Fargo, no. He goes, Jerry Jarrett.
But anyway, when you guys went to the ring, he doctored up your clothes, and you guys had to
he doctored real good because from Jonesboro to Nashville, everything burned. I stopped maybe 50 times to cool off.
Funny. Real quick, and we'll go to something else funny, Michael, real quick.
That's a rib of a rib. That, we probably ought to do a show on greatest ribs because that was an outstanding. I've seen that 50 times. It's still funny.
It is a blast. It is funny, and I think you will like this one too. This proves what a sense of humor, obviously we know a sense of humor Jerry Lawler has, a sense of humor that Lance Russell has as they prank a doctor of all people in Evansville, Indiana. Show it now on Talking Memphis Wrestling.
I know you got a really tough match coming up.
That's right.
We're going to be looking forward.
You know, I always enjoy coming to Evansville, and I've had some of my toughest matches in Evansville, Indiana. And I'd like to do something just a little out of the ordinary today, if I could. Most of the people don't realize, what goes on before a match down in the dressing room, what takes place. A lot of the wrestlers, they have to come into the towns early and they have to get there. And there's a commission, an athletic commission doctor in every city. And we have a fine one here in Evansville, and he checks all the wrestlers, and his name is Dr. Schriefer. And I'd like...
Yeah.
Dr. Schriefer, this is Lance Russell.
Hey, Doc, how are you? Pardon the microphone right there.
Okay.
We've had the pleasure of meeting you on a couple of occasions before, and we're delighted to have you with us on this interview for Evansville in here. You have been in the business of inspecting the wrestlers for what? How long?
Oh, checked them about 16 years.
Oh, and you check them over for what there?
Yeah, blood pressure and heart and chest. Anything I see wrong, which may disqualify them, I disqualify them on certain conditions.
And most of these guys really pretty amazing physical specimens?
They're good specimens. Most of them are real good.
They take a lot of backdrops and things like that, and it's got to shake them up. I know that they get banged around a lot.
Well, it's bound to shake them up, but fella, most of us know how to fall. I played a little football in my days, and most of us know how to fall in basketball. And you usually know how to fall a little bit, land on your legs or something like that, or on your feet, and sometimes takes the pressure off.
Well, I've heard that from all the traveling that they do, and a lot of the backdrops and a lot of these guys have hemorrhoids, and so really, I've heard that it's a tough way, and I assume probably
the doc sticks his finger up our ass and checks us for hemorrhoids.
Come on,
before the match.
No. I don't worry about the hemorrhoids. I don't worry about
really. No, I'm not kidding you.
Hey, come on, Jerry.
This
is a family show. We're gonna have to cut it. Yeah, that's all.
Get out of here.
Yeah,
it's very nice.
That's right.
Thank you. Pleasure, and thank you very much.
Hey, come on, Jerry. That's enough. We're not gonna have it.
That is crazy. I want to go back to Tojo Yamamoto. Tojo was born January 6, 1927, passed away February the 19th, 1992 at 65 years old. We just saw Lance Russell. Lance Russell was born March the 18th, 1926, passed away October the 3rd, 2017, 2017, and Lance was 91 years old when he passed away. About 20 seconds. What did you think? And then we'll go to Al Costello and a rib he pulls on Lance. But what did you think about that with
that was
the
a pretty
doctor?
good. Yeah, the doctor had no idea what was coming, so that was a pretty daggum good rib. The thing was Lawler trying to keep from busting a gut. That was hilarious. And by the way, Jerry Lawler was not drinking. Jerry Lawler doesn't drink ever. He's never drank, and that's the honest to God's truth.
Never drank a drop in his
We went
life.
to a Long's hot dog.
But he had a funny sense of humor, and that obviously wasn't shown on television. That was
he
just
still
a
has
rib.
a great sense of humor, Randy, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Absolutely. Here's another funny one where Lance kind of got pranked by Al Costello. Al Costello managed the Fabulous Kangaroos and other people later on in Memphis, managed Bill Hickerson and Dennis Condrey. Al Costello was born, listen to this, Michael. Al Costello was born December the 14th, 1919, passed away January the 22nd, 2080 years old. This is Al Costello and the great Lance Russell.
23rd, right there in Evansville, is going to bring on one of the really big nights of action coming up in Evansville. And we want to tell you about it, a special concert that'll have Jimmy Hart and the Gentrys of the, hold it Al, we'll be around to you in just a minute. Jimmy Hart and the Gentrys with a special... Hey, what's the matter? What's the matter, man? He's wind jam. Hey, that's part of the interview. No, man. Well, let me make the goddamn pitch and then start that mean shit. Yeah, let me get that. I knew when my car wouldn't start tonight, I should have stayed home. Turkey Day, and Al Costello, the manager of Hickerson and Condrey, some comments about this match with us.
Mate, can I ask you a question first of all?
Go right ahead.
You know the definition of a windjammer?
No, I really don't.
It's the agonizing screams of a trapped turd.
Shit.
Can you tell of any time? First of all, I want you to comment on that. But also, has any wrestler tried to rib you?
Oh my God,
like
yes. Oh my God, yes. Handsome Jimmy Valiant, God bless him. And he brings it up every time I see him. We were doing it right after Jerry Jarrett bought out Nick Goulas. We were doing interviews after the show at the Fairgrounds Arena in Nashville on Wednesday night. And I had to interview Handsome Jimmy. And Jimmy knew I was straight-laced and just, I was an announcer. I wasn't going to get involved in anything. And he comes up to me and he's boogie woogie Michael St. John. He says, he points to his mouth and says, I got some dip. He says, have you ever tried any dip? And I was like, no, Jimmy, I can't say I did. And about that time, he grabbed my upper lip and pulled it down and threw this stuff in my mouth and put my back. And I go back and it's a 3-minute interview. We used to have 3 2s and 1s. Remember that, Randy? You had a 3 and a 2, and then you had a 1 to just do the card. And this was like 10 seconds into the 3. And boy, when you bust an interview back in those days, it's 11 o'clock at night. People are ready to leave. They cleared the arena, and you just don't do that. And you just continue. Well, I can't talk. Jimmy's doing his boogie woogie thing. And I'm sitting there, and about a minute into it, that head of mine just starts doing this. And about 2 minutes into it, I'm drooling that crap down the side of my lips. And I've never been ribbed like that before or since, but Jimmy Valiant got me and got me good.
That's fantastic. Funny times we had in the old Memphis territory through the years. And in today's show, as we saw the thing with beautiful Bobby Eaton coming up with that Alabama Jam on Me. And I thought it would be interesting, Michael, to go back to 1987. And Adam, this is on the left side of the screen and it is queued up. This is an interview with Stretcher Jack Hart, also known as Barry Horowitz, and Chick Donovan. I wish because Pat talks about Chick Donovan all the time. I wish Pat was here today. And I'm involved in this thing as well. This is Jack Hart, Barry Horowitz, and Chick Donovan, and watch what happens. This is a little lengthy, more lengthy than what we just saw, but this is good stuff. This is the first time anything physical happened to me.
Title shot. You can't even lace your boots, Daddy. Now, this is not fair. We got an Intercontinental Champion right here, international champion. Okay? How come he don't get a title shot? How come I don't get a title shot? This punk kid milking cows in Hendersonville gets us title shot.
You end up moaning and groaning about somebody else's good fortune in there. Why don't you just wait your turn and wait, maybe good fortune will shine on
Who
you.
are you talking
Hey,
to?
come on now, don't
Hey,
start.
I don't need
Hey,
that.
listen,
I
who do
don't
you
need
think
that.
you're talking? You ain't talking to me.
I'm talking to you, man. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you.
Oh, get this guy out of here. Get off.
I'm talking to you.
Get out of here. Who the Sam Hill? Will you get these guys out of here? Come on, get out of here.
Who are you, kitty kid?
You got no more business in here doing it. I'll tell you what. Wait a minute. Any more stuff like that.
Who are you? Who are you? Eddie Marlin. You don't look like Eddie Marlin. You don't look like Eddie Marlin. I'm telling you to get out of here right now. You're not going to put your hand on that. You got to get out of here right now. Are you still somewhere? Are you still out of here? You ain't going nowhere, brother. What are you doing? I'm telling you, Eddie Marlin's not here. You're not going to put your hands on him. Are you supposed to get
No
out of here?
meter later, the
Be a
first
messenger
time
boy or
I started
something?
selling merchandise for Memphis Wrestling in 73, I started with, oh no, yeah, 73, started ring announcing in 77.
All right, let's take a break. Here we go.
Was that the first time you ever got beat up on TV?
First time I ever got beat up on TV. And the first thing at the end of that thing is Lance was helping me up. I mouthed something to Lance, and what I said is pitch a break. And then he told Dave to pitch the break. So you ever seen that before?
I saw that when it happened. That was an incredible thing. Did you hear that? The pop with the crowd? The crowd just went nuts.
That's one thing Adam said in the comments. I think it was Adam that made that comment, said, listen to the pop. And that's the thing that's missing in wrestling. This is how we're going to finish the show today. But studio wrestling and the silly stuff we did. I'm not talking about it was a rib in a dressing room and the Al Costello thing. I'm talking about the different angles and different stories and the drama with Dundee and Dundee's family and the promoter getting involved and everything. There's nothing like Memphis Wrestling. And again, it lasted to 2001 at the end of Power Pro. I'm really proud of that, and I sold pretty good, didn't I, Michael
You
St.
talking
John?
about pops though? You were great at that kind of stuff, and still are, and I know that. But you know the thing about pops, I actually saw one last night on WWE that I haven't seen in years, and that's the pop to CM Punk. And I know that you had said we wanted to talk about that a little bit before we get off the show. But I'll tell you, Punk is the best shoot interview in professional wrestling today. And he did a 3.5, 4-minute shoot interview at the end of Monday Night Raw last night. That was probably one of the greatest segments of Monday Night Raw this decade, without a doubt. And again, personal issues sell. Personal issues put butts in the seats. Personal issues make money. And boy, that was $1 million worth last night, at least.
I didn't like the interview.
Wow.
I really didn't. I didn't. I thought his interview when he returned to wrestling after 8 years in AEW, I think that interview, I'm not any bias toward any promotion or against modern wrestling. When he returned to wrestling after 8 years, and I thought he was shooting. I think it was obviously that he was shooting. I thought it was just great. I thought it was the best interview that I've ever seen in my life. I was just disappointed by that interview. I thought they didn't let CM, maybe they're milking it out. I hate second guessing creative because you can't blow your whole wad in one show. I thought the reaction from the people was great. And Adam and I watched the Survivor Series, and the way they ended that show after the return of Randy Orton and that great cage match and all that it was, and they went to close the show, is the smartest way to end a show I've ever seen in my life. At the end, the baby faces, hands raised. It was all over. They went ahead and ran the credits, the copyright thing. So you're thinking, it got me, Michael. It got me. And then you're talking about best pops you ever heard. I'm fixing to tell you mine. That when they did that deal, they went to the credits, and then they played Punk's music in his hometown of Chicago, and it was good God Almighty. I mean, good God Almighty. I've never seen anything like that in my entire life. Last
night, they were in Nashville. They were at the arena in Nashville where the hockey team plays. And I just thought the way that he spoke that interview, or the way he did that promo, he referred to, without saying anything about AEW, he referred to why he left WWE before without saying anything about it. But he also gave props to a wise man, Paul Heyman, and then he gave props to Cody Rhodes within that interview. I thought it was well done. I thought it was a great way to go off the show. I really do. I don't know what the ratings were, but I personally thought, now I did not see Survivor Series because I don't buy the pay-per-views, but I did not see it. So you may be absolutely right what happened in Survivor Series, and everybody on Twitter and the internet's talking about it. So it must have been a hell of a pop. But I thought the way they played the WWE thing last night was pretty doggone good. But that's my opinion. So who's going to win games?
All right. Are you ready are you ready, Michael St. John, to declare the death of AEW?
Too much money. I don't know. I'm not. I think there's too much money still in play. I don't think AEW is dying. I think it's going through a problem. Tony's got to have, no offense, and I met Tony one time, and after I met him, I like him as a person. He's got to grow a set, and he's got to take control. Or if he doesn't take control of that locker room, he better damn well get somebody in there that can and will. And it shouldn't be a jellyfish. It's got to be somebody with a bone, like a backbone, like a Randy Hales or a Jimmy Cornette, somebody that can take control of that situation.
One news that came out today, and you can't hardly believe anything that's said on social media, but it was quoted to him. Well, for some reason or the other, they formed a disciplinary committee in AEW, and they named the leader of that committee. And that leader,
No, I have
did you
not.
hear this,
I'm
Scoop?
looking on Twitter right now, but I did not hear that.
Brian Danielson.
Really?
And Brian Danielson said that he always respected the thing. He said, but he said the right thing is always the right thing. And even though that when he first came in here, he did a lot, but the situations that went on, and I read further, and it said that he is what you're talking about, the guys with balls, because Brian Danielson has them. If a wrestler's late or if a wrestler is causing problems or whatever the case, he has authorization, and he has, according to what I saw, he will fine
Can
them.
he fire him? It's one thing when you lose money. It's another thing when you lose your job. And my choice for that, honestly, would have been Arn Anderson. But I guess Tony made his. I don't think Brian Danielson's a bad choice, but
no. And Arn Anderson, I don't know if you had heard, about a month, 6 weeks ago, he resigned. He's no longer with the company.
That's who.
No longer with the company. And, it's just the way things are now. I think to have just like I'm not a believer, even though I understand they got it going, but I'm not a believer in Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, and even Cody. I love Cody, but to have wrestlers even advertised as executive vice presidents, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. So I think they should be a head of talent relations. If Jim Ross was, and he's done the job for the WWF and the Attitude Era, if he was more healthy, he's obviously has issues. I think it should be Jim Ross. I don't think it should be active wrestling.
I agree with that. And I think Jim Ross would be a great advantage to Tony to have Jim in that position. But is Jim healthy enough, mind, body, and soul to do it?
Probably not. And the way I don't think he owed the stress. Social media not trustworthy? Of course it's not. But when you're reading quotes from what I consider reputable people attributed, and maybe even Brian Danielson's or Twitter or social media, just for a random person on social media making the post, I wouldn't even repeat it. It's I believe that's the case, and I believe he's trying to do the right thing. And I'm also believing, Michael, that Tony Khan is aware of the fact that they have issues and that he's not equipped to handle it. And
well, there's somebody else in that dressing room that I think should have more power and should have more authority over what goes on, especially in the ring, and that's Jeff Jarrett. Amen.
Jeff Jarrett.
Amen.
So JR is not a wrestler, so that's why I mentioned him. But Jeff does not, at 50-something years old, maybe 53 years old, doesn't have to wrestle because he's a part of the office and he gets his money and he's a great talent. But if it was me, I would have him have double jobs. I would have him to be the head of talent relations. I would have him 3 jobs: head of talent relations, head of creative, and also head of wrestling.
Well, and Jerry has Jeff rather has the history, has the experience with Impact, and so I mean that to me is a slam dunk. And then you bring in somebody like a Jimmy Cornette, who's a friend of Jeff Jarrett's, or a Dutch Mantell, who's a friend of Jeff Jarrett's, and let them help with creative. Because I just mentioned 2 names, like them or hate them, they are fabulous when it comes to creative. Whether it's Jimmy Cornette, whether it's Dutch Mantell, whether it's Randy Hales. I mean, I think you would be a fabulous I think you would be the perfect. I've been saying this on this show for 3 years. You'd be the perfect person to do the booking for Tony. But here's the problem that I read when I read in the social media, and when I talk to people like you and other people around the business or other wrestlers, they love Tony. They think Tony's a great guy, nice guy, but they see him as a mark. They see him as a fan. They see him as a guy that always wanted to run his own wrestling company. And right now, Tony's in heaven. Tony's in his happy place because he's accomplished that part. But this is a business. It's about money. It's about making money for you and for the wrestlers and for making entertainment for whether it's TV or pay-per-views. And Tony needs help.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. Real quick, we're 3 minutes over. Final comments on this Talking Memphis Wrestling today, and I appreciate it. This has been a fun show, Michael St. John.
It is. I would love to do some football picks, but if we're out of time.
No, we can do it. We can do it. I'm glad you said that. Let me get these readers on Friday's game. Number 3, Washington. Number 5, Oregon.
Oregon's a big favorite in this game. I don't know if they cover, but I think they get revenge. They'll beat Washington. Washington got them early in the season. Oregon gets revenge on Friday night.
Saturday, December the 2nd. Number 7, Texas against number 19, Oklahoma State.
Boy, there's a ton of people in Alabama that want Oklahoma State to win that football game to bring chaos because Texas is the stumbling block to Alabama even making the playoffs. Texas is a better team. Texas, but close.
Number 2, Michigan. Number 17, Iowa. And before you get to that one, what was your pick last week for Michigan and Ohio State?
I've said this since the 31st of August. The best football team in America right now is the Michigan Wolverines. They've been that way all season, and a close number 2, the Georgia Bulldogs.
All right. So obviously they won that big game without their coach. Now their coach Harbaugh will not be coaching against Iowa, correct?
No, he's back. He's back for the championship.
Oh, is he back? I thought it was the
doesn't
final
matter.
3 games.
Iowa's a great defensive team. Michigan will put 25 to 28 points on them anyway. And Iowa won't score.
Number 4, FSU. Number 14, Louisville.
Louisville shit the bed last week against the Wildcats of Kentucky at home in Louisville, and they played. I watched that game. It was horrible. They'll be back this week, but not enough to beat Florida State. Florida State, even though they've lost their starting quarterback, too many guns, too much power on offense, and a hellacious defense, wins the game, but close.
So tell me again, who's going to win?
Alabama and or in that game, Florida State.
No, FSU and Louisville.
Florida State. Woo!
All right. So we talked about it earlier. Number 1, Georgia. Number 8, Alabama.
This is going to be the best game of the day. I think Alabama will give Georgia all they want, but I think in the end, Georgia prevails.
Final words as we wrap this. Did I forget anything else?
I think there's an AAC game between Tulane and SMU, and I think SMU wins, but it doesn't play in the national championship picture. 4 teams for the national championship. Michigan, Georgia. I think Texas ends up there, and Oregon.
So no Alabama.
No, Georgia will take Alabama out. The question mark, Texas or Florida State. I think the committee, if Texas beats Oklahoma State big, I think the committee will jump Texas over Florida State because of Florida State's quarterback issue. And I think Louisville will play Florida State very, very close in this game as well.
Any more?
I loved it. Great show. Thank you, Randy, for allowing me to be here. And thank you for all the folks tonight. Great comments. And really appreciate everybody's. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. We're getting ready for Christmas, and it's a fun time of the year. And everybody be nice to everybody and have a great week. And God bless. And thank you, Randy. And hey, keep getting well. Keep going positive.
One quick thing. Our new man watching YouTube says, what happens to the Final Four if Georgia loses?
Alabama might get in, but again, I think a lot plays on Texas, Oklahoma State, Louisville, Florida State, and then if Alabama beats Georgia and the stars line up, Alabama could sneak in as the 4 seed. And I do that at that point in time. I don't think Georgia makes it.
Al Tuttle says, go Dogs, because he's a Georgia guy. So is Adam Dunn. Mike St. John, Alabama guy. Appreciate everybody watching. We will be back, and I think I have a caption. We will be back next Monday, of course, for the Power Hour with Power Pro Wrestling back at you at 7 o'clock Central. Next Tuesday night, it's this Talking Memphis Wrestling show. You have a subject in mind, Michael?
Hey, I'll not right now, but I know you will have one, and it'll be fantastic no matter what.
For Michael St. John and producer Adam Dunn, this is Randy Hills. How about my set, Michael? How do you like my Christmas set?
I love it. It makes me want to do something back here.
Adam did it for me when he was here this weekend. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
God bless everybody. Bye-bye.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hills and special guests.